Good Good afternoon, students. In the last class, we were speaking about animal kingdom. This topic comes under your 9th standard, the diversity in animals, and same topic which is repeated in your first POC under animal kingdom. Okay. In the last class, we have seen based on what characteristic feature the animals are classified. We have seen that yes, we have seen that based on arrangement of cell. How? Based on arrangement of cells, the animals are classified. Based on arrangement of cell. Under the arrangement of cell, we have seen there are 4 levels of organization where animals are classified based on their cellular arrangement, how the cells are arranged. In the lower organisms, the organism cells have cellular level of organization, that is the lower level of organization, followed by some of the animals in the little higher class. They show the group of cells aggregate together and form tissue level of organization. And in the next level of organization, the group of tissue combine to form an organ, forming organ level of organization. And in the higher organisms, like mammals, different organs together combine to form an organ system level of organization. Okay, this we have studied in the last class. Along with that, we have studied few more characteristic features based on which the animals are classified. I have told you based on body symmetry. Based on the body symmetry, the animals are classified. Now the question is, what is this body symmetry? Here, when we take a central axis, along the central axis, how the body of animals are organized. Okay, the body organization, based on that the animals are classified. Based on body symmetry, there are 3 types of classification. Based on body symmetry, there are 3 types of classification. If the animal's body is not divided into equal half, if consider this is an animal, when I divide an organism through central axis, now if I cut this organism through middle axis, if it is not dividing into equal half, now if I divide this, whether it is an equal half, no, here I am not getting an equal half. Here what happens, it is, here the animal's body is not divided into equal half, that is why we say they are non-symmetrical or they are asymmetrical. What happens here, based on the body symmetry as well, the animals are classified. In how based on the body symmetry the animals are classified? When we divide an organism through central axis. If I divide this organism, consider this is an organism. If I divide this organism through central axis, if I do not get equal half, then the body is not in symmetry. We say they are asymmetrical. The animal is not having body symmetry. Is that clear? Based on body symmetry we have asymmetrical. What is asymmetrical? When I divide an organism through central axis, if I do not get 2 equal half, then we say the animal's body is asymmetrical. This is one group of the organisms which do not have body symmetry. They will be grouped under asymmetrical. Similarly, when I divide an organism, consider an organism. Consider this is an organism. If I divide this organism through central axis in any plane, it might be in this plane, it might be in this plane, or it might be in this plane. When I divide this organism through central axis in any plane, if I get equal half, now for example, if I cut this in this plane, I get equal half. Similarly, if I cut this organism in this plane, again I have got equal half. If I cut this organism in this plane, again I have got equal half. Now I am cutting this animal through central axis in different plane. Even after I cut this organism through central axis in different plane, if I get equal half, then we call that symmetry as radial symmetry. What is radial symmetry? If I divide an organism through central axis in different plane, and if I get equal half, I have considered the organisms here. I cut the organism in one plane, in other plane, and third plane. Even if I cut this organism in different plane through central axis, and if I get two equal halves, then we call it as radial symmetry. I repeat, based on body symmetry, the animals are classified. First one is asymmetrical. What happens in asymmetry? If I divide an organism through central axis and if I do not get equal half, then I call it as asymmetrical. Their body do not have any symmetry. Similarly, coming to the next one, if I divide an organism, consider this is one organism. If I cut this organism in different plane, that must be passing through central axis, and if I get an equal half, okay, if I get an equal half, then we call it as radial symmetry. Okay, we call it as radial symmetry. Coming to the next one, coming to the next body symmetry. If I take an organism, consider a butterfly. Okay, consider if I take an organism and if I cut this organism in one plane, that is, if I cut this organism in one plane and if I get identical left and right, what happens? If I take an organism and if I cut this organism in one plane, okay, and if I get identical left and right, then we call that type of symmetry as bilateral symmetry. Now based on body symmetry, there are organisms are classified into three groups. First one, if the body is not dividing into equal half, we call it as asymmetrical. If the body is dividing into equal half in any plane, if I cut in any direction, if I get equal half, then we call it as radial symmetry. Now, if I take an organism and cut the organism in one plane and if I get equal left and right, if I cut this organism in this plane, do I get equal left, identical left and right? No. Here what happens? Here it has antenna, here it do not have an antenna. We do not get an equal left and right. We cannot cut this organism in any plane. I can cut this organism only in one plane. Now if an organism is dividing into left and right, when I divide it in one plane, then we call it as bilateral symmetry. We call it as bilateral symmetry. The organisms are grouped under three groups. If we get any plane, for example, now if I take sponges, okay, or your polyferens, you have heard about polyferens, you have studied about polyferens. If I take an polyfera or a sponge which is having irregular shape, if I cut this in through the central axis, I am not getting any equal half, then they belong to asymmetry. Example for asymmetry are sponges. Example for asymmetry is sponges. Similarly, if I take in starfish, if I consider starfish, If I cut the starfish in any plane, if I cut the starfish, I'll be getting equal half. Okay, equal half. Equal it will be dividing in any plane. Okay, in any radiating plane, we'll be getting equal half. An example is radial symmetry. Example you can give starfish. Similarly, if I take a human being, if I consider a human being, if I cut a human being through central axis, one single axis, I'll be getting identical left and I'll be getting identical right. Where we will have right eye, left, we'll be having left eye, left ears, right ears, left hand, left leg and right leg. Similarly, we'll be having identical left and right. We have similar parts which is present in the left side, which is similar to our right side. We say that type of symmetry as bilateral symmetry. Example you can give human beings. They are grouped all together. It is not only human beings. We have Annelida, we have Arthropoda, different phylums. They can come under bilateral symmetry that we'll discuss while discussing the phylums. If I am clear with the body symmetry, now coming to the next one, based on the characteristic feature like germinal layer. The animals are classified based on the germinal layer. Now, what is this germinal layer? When the organism is formed, what happens? There will be fertilization, there will be fusion of gametes. That the fertilization takes place, it forms a zygote and zygote will start multiplying into an embryo. In that embryonic stage, the organisms, if they develop into two layers, if they are body layers, if it has two layers, then we call them as two body layers. In the lower organism, the embryo develop into two layers, we call it as diploblastic organisms. What are diploblastic organisms? Diplo is nothing but two, plastic is nothing but layers. In that blastula, they will be having two layers. In the organisms, in the embryonic layer, in the lower organism, they differentiate into how many layers? They differentiate into two layers, and if they are differentiating into two layers, then we call an organism as diploblastic organisms. In the higher organism, what happens? When they differentiate into three layers. Their body is differentiating into three layers, then we call them as triploblastic organism. Now, based on this characteristic feature also, the animals are classified. If the lower organism, they have two layers, they come under diploblastic. In the higher organism, how many layers do they have? They have three layers and they come under triploblastic. I repeat, these are the characteristic feature based on how the animals are classified. We have arrangement of cells, how the cells are arranged based on that. We have them grouped them into four groups. Based on the type of symmetry, how the body parts are organized. Based on that, we have three groups, and based on the germinal layer, that is embryonic layer, the animals are classified into two groups. If they have two layers, their embryo has two layers, two differentiated layer, we call them as diploblastic. If the organism body has differentiated into three layers, three is nothing but triploblastic, they are layers. They are called as, they are grouped under triploblastic. Is it clear? Okay. Then coming to the next one, that is based on the coelom. What is coelom? Coelom is a body cavity. Okay. Now, if I say in our body, we have internal organ. Whether that you consider this is digestive system, this is outer part. Whether our digestive system is directly attached to the body wall. No. Here what happens with this is an internal organ, this is a body wall. Between this internal organ and the body wall, there is a space present. That space or that cavity is called as coelom. This is our alimentary canal. This is our alimentary canal, a digestive system. This is our body wall. This is our body wall. Between the body wall and the gut wall, there is a cavity present. Okay, that cavity is called as coelom. Okay, we call it as coelom. If the organism's body has this coelom, now the organ in the body, if it has this coelom, then we call them as coelomates. Then we call them as coelomates. If they do not have the coelom, then we call them as acoelomates. Then we call them as acoelomates. Okay, what happens? Organisms' body generally, they are between the body wall. This is the body wall, outer body wall. This is the internal organ. Between the body wall and the internal organ, there is a cavity present. If the animal's body has that cavity, then we call it as coelomates. If they do not have this body cavity, then we call them as acoelomates. Okay, these are about the basic characteristic feature. Similarly, we have based on the type of digestive system. These are the points which I have told you in the last class. In detail we have discussed today. Coming to the next one, that is based on type of digestive system. I'll explain about digestive system here. Consider if the organism, if this is an organism, if it has one common opening, the body only opening it has only one opening outside the body, which acts as both mouth and anus. Which acts as both mouth and anus. That means the food is taken by this opening itself, the waste product is thrown outside by this opening. Then we call that type of digestive system as incomplete digestive system. It is not complete. Okay, it is not complete because this organism has only one opening. That one common opening which will be acting as mouth, that means it helps to intake the food. That one common opening itself, it helps to throw the waste product. It acts as anus. That is why that type of digestion is called as incomplete digestion. You can call it as incomplete digestion because here it is not complete, the digestive system is not complete. But in the higher organism, what happens? We have mouth, we have different parts of digestive system. We have mouth and this is mouth where the intake of food takes place, and this is anus. The body of an organism, in the higher organism, the body has two different openings here. One which is mouth, which helps to intake the food. One is anus, which helps to throw the waste product. Here in this organism, in the higher organism, if it has two openings, one as mouth and other as anus, then we call that type of digestion as complete digestive system or complete digestion. Now, the organism which show incomplete digestive system, they will be grouped under one group. The organism which show complete type of digestion, they will be grouped under other group. Okay, this is how the animals are classified. Generally, this is how the animals are classified based on this, keeping this as fundamental features. Considering this as fundamental features, the animals will be grouped under different phylums. Now, if we study phylums, it will be clear how the animals are grouped here. Okay. First, which are the fundamental characteristic feature? One is based on the arrangement of cell. Then body symmetry. What is body symmetry? When I take a central axis, how the organs are arranged. Based on that, we have different body symmetry. When I divide an organism through central axis, if I do not get equal half, then it is asymmetrical. If I divide an organism in any plane and if I get equal half, then it is radial symmetry. If I divide an organism in one plane and if I get identical left and right, then it is bilateral symmetry. Similarly, based on the embryonic or the germinal layer, if the animal's body has two layers, then we call it as diploblastic. If the animal's body has 3 layers, then we call it as triploblastic. And the next characteristic feature we have coelom, that is based on the body cavities. Here, the body cavity is present between the internal organ and the body wall. Between that, the space present, the body cavity present, we call it as coelom. Animals with the coelom are called as coelomates. If they do not have coelom, they are called as acoelomates. Then we have, based on the type of digestive system, if they have one common opening in the body, if the body is outside the body, if they have one common opening, one has mouth, other and one more as anus, which has only one opening, and that opening acts as mouth. Ade opening mouth act ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ, ade opening anus function ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ. That type of digestive system is called as incomplete digestive system. Then coming to next one, the higher organism whose body, they have two openings. One is mouth for intake of food, one is anus to throw the waste product. Then we call that type of digestive system as complete digestive system. This is the basic characteristic feature how the animals are classified. Now we'll study, there are a number of phylums. Okay, we'll be studying one by one based on how which characteristic feature or based on what characteristic feature the animals are classified. We'll be studying one after the other. We'll be beginning with the lowest phylum or less differentiated organism into the higher. Then we'll be studying one by one up to the higher class, which is highly differentiated animals. First we'll study about phylum Porifera. Coming to phylum under kingdom Animalia, there are different phylums. We are coming to the first one, that is phylum Porifera. And these poriferans, they are generally called as sponges. What are they generally called as? They are generally called as sponges. Phylum Porifera, they are commonly or in general, instead of poriferans, we can call them as sponges as well. Now the question is, why they have got the name as Porifera? Here, the body of the organism, consider this is a sponge, consider this is a sponge. This is how sponge appears, one kind of sponge appear to be. The body of the sponge has a smaller pores. What is the meaning of pore? Opening. Their body, what does it has? It has pores. Okay. Since the body of organism has these pores, what does their body have? Their body bear pores. Since their body consists of pores, they have got the name as poriferans. They are pore bearing animals. ಯಾಕೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಪಾರಿಫೆರಾ ಅಂತ ಹೆಸರು ಬಂತು? ಅದರ ಬಾಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸಣ್ಣ ಸಣ್ಣ ಓಪನಿಂಗ್ ಇದೆ, ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. Since they have that pores in their body, they have got the name as poriferans. Or in simple, we can say they are pore bearing animals. Okay? The animals belonging to phylum Porifera, they are generally called as sponges. In general, we call them as sponges. And the body of sponges consists of smaller pores. There are some pores there, and and due to that pores present, porifera, pore bearing animals. That is why they have got the name as poriferans. In simple, you can say they are pore bearing animals. Okay. Coming to the next one, their habitat. Where do they live? Okay, based on that also the animals are classified. Now if they live in the water, they all come under one group. If they live in the land, they all come under one group. In case of sponges, their habitat is where do they live. In case of sponges or poriferans, they are aquatic. What is the meaning of aquatic? They live in water. When I say aquatic, there are two types here. Some live in fresh water, that is in the pond, some in the river. Okay, we call that water bodies as fresh water bodies. If they live in the sea water, okay, that is in the ocean, in the sea, that type of water body is called as marine water body. Here sponges, they are aquatic, they are both fresh water, they live both in fresh water and marine. What is fresh water? If they live in a river, pond, we call it as fresh water. If they live in sea, ocean, then they are marine water beings. In case of poriferans, they live in water. Both they can say they are found in fresh water as well as sea water, that is marine water. Is it clear? And coming to the body, here they are mainly, I will speak only about the three body parts here. One is pore. I have told you the body parts. We'll speak about the body parts. Body parts. I have told the animal bear pores, opening. I have told you they bear pore, and that pore is called as ostia. What is that pore called as? Ostia. Okay, our pore name is ostia, and it has a mouth-like structure opening here. You can see it has a wide opening here, mouth-like structure, and that is called as osculum. It is called as osculum. And in center, below the cavity, we call it as spongiocele. Spongiocele, a cavity opening, which is called as spongiocele. Now, which are the three parts? I told you, and the porifera, it has three main body parts. One is pore. What is that pore called as? Ostia. The mouth, the wide opening, it is called as osculum. And then we have a cavity at the center, that is called as spongiocele. Why I have told you this part is, but you have studied that poriferans bear water canal system. Have you heard that poriferans have water canal system? Yes. They bear water canal system. Now what is this water canal system? Their body take up the nutrient component. Okay, this is the body. From where do they take up the nutrient components? By this water canal system. And this water canal system includes ostia, spongiocele and osculum. Okay, what happens? Sponges, they have water canal system. What is this water canal system? I tell you. Before that water canal system mainly bears, which are the parts that bear? It bears ostia, it has osculum and it has spongiocele. Now, why this water canal system is required in case of sponges, or what is the function of this water canal system? Here, sponges need the nutrients. Now, if I want the nutrient food or the nutrient, how do I take? I take it in the form of solid or the liquid food. I take it in the mouth. That will be broken down and that will be sent to blood. But in case of the poriferans, they do not have a well-developed system. They just have cellular level of organization. Yes, the cells are present. So, they have for circulating. In our body, we have blood for circulation. But here, the water is the medium of circulation. That is why they have that water canal system. That means the water carry nutrient components. They carry nutrients throughout the body. In case of coriferans, what happens? They carry the nutrients throughout the body. Which one carries the nutrients throughout the body? Water. And that whole system we call it as water canal system. Now, how does water canal system works? We know it has a pore called as ostia. Through ostia, that is pore, the water enters. Water enters the body. How the water enters the body? How does water enter the body? Through ostia. We have ostia. Through this ostia, the water will be entering the body of porifera. Then it will be transported along the body. How? The water will reach the spongiocele, which will be taken throughout the body. Even water component complete body ke circulate aagta hai along the spongiocele. Circulate once it is circulated, the waste product will be collected. Okay, waste product is collected, and through the mouth-like structure, that is osculum, the waste product is given out. Okay, through osculum, the waste product is given out. It is given out. What happens? You can see clearly. You can clearly see here what happens. There is a canal, water canal system formed. That is, ostia in the water enter agtade. Ostia in the water enter agtade. Water enters through ostia. It will be moving to spongiocele, and through osculum it is given out. Ostia in the enter aayto, osculum ge hoyto. Spongiocele hoyto, along the osculum it is given out. Okay, this whole structure we call it as water canal system. That is why they say poriferans bear water canal system. Okay, and coming to the outer body of porifera, they bear skeletal cells. The outer body will be hard. The outer body of porifera, it is hard in nature, and they bear skeletal cells. Okay, they bear skeletal cells. In our body, do we have our skeleton outside the body or inside the body? We have inside the body, internal skeleton. That means the skeletal structure is present inside. But in case of poriferans, the skeletal cells which are present in the lining of the body. Okay, their body is having outer skeletal cells. Coming to the next one, they have these poriferans. I have told you based on the arrangement of cells we group an organism. Here poriferans, they have minimal differentiation. That means they have cellular level of organization. Okay, cellular level. I need not explain what is cellular level because I have already told you what is cellular level. Here the animals' body is having cells which are different, which will be loosely arranged, which is not tightly packed, and each cell will be having particular function. In porifera, we do not have a group of tissue forming. Cells differentiate there. Okay, it is having a minimal or lower level of organization, that is cellular level of organization. Then coming to body symmetry, if I divide this sponge into through the central axis, do I get it in an equal half? No. Here, since they do not have a proper body shape or they do not have a proper body symmetry, we call them as asymmetrical. They are asymmetrical. They do not have a proper body symmetry. And their body layer is differentiated into two layers. If their body layer is differentiated into two layers, then they are called to be, what type of body they have? Diplo or triploblastic? Diploblastic. They are diploblastic animals. And since they do not have a body cavity, in body wall when the internal organs completely develop agade rodrega, they are called to be acoelomates. This is about the characteristic feature of phylum Porifera. Okay, these are the characteristic feature of phylum Porifera, which I've already studied in your 9th standard. Again, you'll be studying in detail about it in your first POC. So if you know the basic characters in detail, it will be surely helping you to study in your first POC. Coming to phylum Porifera, I repeat here. The wider organ, what are they generally called as? They are generally called as sponges. And since the body of organism bears smaller openings or pores, they are called as poriferans. Okay, they are generally called as poriferans. Their habitat. What is the meaning of habitat? That means where do they live? Here they are aquatic. That means they live in water. And here there are two types of water body. One is they are living in the sea, they are living in the sea or in the ocean. We call it as marine water body. If they are living in the river or pond, then we call it as fresh water bodies. Sponges are found both in the marine as well as fresh water bodies. That is why their habitat we call it as both fresh water and the marine water body. Then their body parts mainly it is having the pores called as ostia, the external opening called as osculum, and then a cavity present, that is the space present we call it as spongiosele. Okay, it is called as spongiosele. Now, their body mainly, this is very important, that is sponges bear water canal system. What is this water canal system? Here you will be seeing how the water is transported along the body. How the water is transported? Through ostia. Through ostia, the water enters. It moves to spongiosele and it collects all the waste product. While moving into ostia, it takes all the nutrients. Whatever is the nutrient component of the it will be moving to spongiosele. That means it is taken throughout the body and the waste product is collected along the spongiosele and through the osculum it is given outside. Okay, it is thrown outside, and that type of canal system or the transport of water we call it as water canal system. Then the external body here, it is lined by skeletal cells. It has exoskeleton. The skeletal cells are present outside the body, and then their basic level of organization. What type of organization do they have? The organism have very low level of organization. That means they are not differentiated into cells or they do not have a particular organ here. They show the basic level of organization, that is cellular level of organization. Here the cells are loosely arranged and each cell will be having a particular or individual function. Then we have asymmetrical. What is asymmetrical? If I divide an organism sponge, consider this is one sponge. Okay. If I divide this sponge into the central axis, I will be not getting equal half. Then we call it as asymmetrical, and the germinal layer or its embryonic layer has only 2 layers. That is why we say it as diploblastic, and we do not have a body cavity present between the internal organ, because they do not have an internal organ developed. That is why we call them as acoelomates. This is about the phylum Porifera. Let me give you 2 examples for phylum Porifera. First example is Spongilla. It is easy to remember. Sponges, Spongilla is the first example, and cycle is the second example. Cycle, those are scientific names. So whenever you write the scientific name, you are supposed to underline the scientific name. One single underline. Spongilla and cycle. They are the common name, they are the scientific name. They are the example for phylum Porifera. Coming to the next phylum, we'll see in the next phylum how the organism's body is differentiated, or we'll see how they are, where do they live, or what type of system do they have. Coming to the next phylum is phylum Cylindrica. If I am clear with the phylum Porifera, I'll be going to next phylum. If you have any doubt, you can add it on the comment section if you want me anything to repeat under phylum Porifera. If not, I'll be continuing with the next phylum. Coming to the next phylum, that is phylum Cylindrica. Phylum Cylindrica, or they are also called as Cnidarians. Phylum Cylindrica, they are also called as Cnidarians. Coming to their habitat, they are mostly marine. What is the meaning of mostly marine? That means they live in sea water. They do not live in the fresh water. Generally, they are present in the sea water or they are marine. And coming to the next one, that is your body. What type of? First, let us speak about basic level of organization here. Your basic level of organization. Here, the animal's body, the cells aggregate. They come together to form a tissue. What is that level of organization called as? It is called as tissue level of organization. What type of organization do they have? Tissue level of organization. The animal's body is differentiated into form a tissue, or the group of same cells which perform same function. They come together and they form a tissue. That is why the body, we say, they are made up of cells and they are having two layers. They are having group of cells, they combine together to form tissue, and we call that level of organization as tissue level of organization. Okay, the basic level of organization is tissue level of organization. Coming to the next one, they are germinal layer. They also have two layers. One is outer membrane and the inner lining of cells. This is outer line and inner lining of cells. They have two layers. If they have two germinal layer, then it is called to be diploblastic. They are diploblastic animals. Okay, they are diploblastic animals. Okay, first we have discussed about their basic level of organization. They show tissue level of organization. Group of cells have aggregated to form tissue, and they show tissue level of organization. And their germinal layer, how many layers do they have? They have two layers. Their embryonic layer, one is outer layer and inner lining of cells. Since we call it as diploblastic animals. Then coming to their symmetry. Now, for example, consider example for linear. You can consider jellyfish, or you can consider hydra. We consider this as hydra, which has tentacles. This is hydra. When I divide this organism, this is a upper view. When I divide this organism in any plane, if I cut this organism in different plane, I will be getting equal half. So what type of symmetry it has? It shows radial symmetry. That means the cnidarians, they show radial symmetry. When I divide an organism in different plane, organism na ಯಾವುದೇ plane ಅಲ್ಲಿ divide ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. If I divide an organism in different plane and if I get equal half, okay, I'll be getting this equal half. If I divide it in different plane as well, that type of symmetry is called as radial symmetry, and cylindrics show radial symmetry. It shows radial symmetry. Now, coming to the next level, next characteristic feature, here the organism can live in the groups. Or how do they live here? We know they are marine, that means they live in the water, but some of the organisms live in colonies. That means, consider for example jellyfish, they live in a group, we call it as the colony. If they live in a group, we call it as colony. Some of the organisms, they live in colony. Some are solitary. What is the meaning of solitary? They live single. Okay, they live alone or single. Okay, how the organism live here? Some of the organism, they live in a group or in a colonies. We call it as colonial. And some are solitary. What is the meaning of solitary? They live single, all alone. For example, I can take an example of Hydra. Okay, they live alone, single. Okay, they are solitary or they are live in a group. Okay, this is about phylum Cylindrica. Coming to the name Cylindrics, why they have got the name as a Cylindrica? Here, consider this is the body of Hydra. This is the body of Hydra. At center, they have a gastrovascular cavity. Organism body a center alli cavity ಇದೆ. That cavity is called as gastrovascular cavity. The gastrovascular cavity is also called as cylindron. Cylindron. Okay, then now cylindron a cavity. Okay, so that cylindrical structure which is having a cavity, gastrovascular cavity, is also called as cylindron. Due to the presence of the gastrovascular cavity, they have got the name as Cylindrica. Our gastrovascular cavity irodrinda adike ಏನು ಹೆಸರು ಬಂತು? It has got the name as Cylindrica. Clear with this? Coming to the examples of cylindrate, you can give Hydra. You can give Hydra as an example. In simple, jellyfish. Jellyfish is an example for Cylindrica. Okay, this is about phylum Cylindrica. Okay, I repeat. In case of Cylindrica, they are also called as Neridians. Their habitat, they are mostly marine, that means they live in sea water. Some of them live in the colonies, we call them as colonial. Example, jellyfish. Some of them live solitary, single, that is Hydra. Then coming back to their basic level of organization, what level do they have? Tissue level of organization, and their germinal layer, they have two layers, that is diploblastic animals. Then here in symmetry, we have radial symmetry. When we divide an organism in any plane, it will be dividing into equal half. Then we have seen the body, they have a body cavity. That cavity is called as cylindron, or it is called as gastrovascular cavity. And that gastrovascular cavity is also known as cylindron. Because of that, they have got the name as Cylindrica. Okay, because of that, they have got the name phylum Cylindrica. The common example, you can give example as Hydra, and then you can give example of jellyfish. Okay, these are the common example of phylum Cylindrica. Okay, in this class we have studied about phylum Porifera, and also we have studied about the phylum Cylindrica. In the next class, we'll be studying about phylum Platyhelminthes. We'll be studying about Ascomyces or Nematoda, and also Annelida. Okay. Now, let me tell you the next phylum, why they are called as Platyhelminthes. Coming to next phylum. Next phylum, and just an introduction to next phylum. Next phylum is Platyhelminthes. Okay. Now, the organism belonging to this phylum, that is phylum Platyhelminthes, they have dorsoventrally. I'll tell you what is this dorsoventrally. Flattened body. What do they have? The organism belonging to phylum Platyhelminthes. The phylum belong to organisms. They have dorsoventrally flattened body. Now, here what is dorsoventrally? Consider if this is the body of an organism, this is the upper side or back side, and this is the front side, front portion. This is the body, and this is the back portion, and this is the front portion. The back portion, if this is the body of an organism, this is the back portion and this is the front, and the back portion we call it as dorsal side. Okay, back portion we call it as dorsal side, and the front portion we call it as ventral side. Here, the body of an organism has dorsally and ventrally, it is completely flattened. Okay, this is the body. Dorsally do not have any extension or organ extension, and ventrally also do not have any organ extension. Here what happens, the animal's body is dorsally and ventrally, it is flattened. That is why we call it as dorsoventrally flattened body. That is why they are also called as flatworms, and they belong to Platyhelminthes. Here generally the animals belonging to this phylum, the organism belonging to this phylum are worms. Okay, that is why it has called as helminths. What is the meaning of helminths? Helminths is nothing but worms. Okay, study of worms is called as helminthology. Helminths is nothing but something related to worm. Why it has got Platyhelminthes? Since the worm's body here, it is completely flat. It has dorsal and the ventral side which is completely flat. That is why we say they have dorsoventrally flattened body, or they are called as flatworms. In the next class, we'll see what type of level of organization do they have, what type of body symmetry they have, and what type of serum or how the body is differentiated in these organisms. In the next class, we'll study in detail about phylum Platyhelminthes and nematodes, Annelida and Arthropoda. In today's class, we have studied the basic level of organization, and we have studied about phylum Polyphera, phylum Cylindrica, and a small introduction to phylum Platyhelminthes. Thank you. Let's look at it.